Balak's shaman, Ahuman, withdrew his hand from a pot of charcoal and extended it, signaling the beginning of the hazing ceremony as he ordered the hunters to gather around. A line of barbarian hunters stood before him, awaiting their turn. Ahuman emphasized the significance of receiving his blessing and warned that those who didn't would face difficulties. Ayan explained to Vikir the reason behind the hunters' charcoal markings. They used charcoal to conceal their faces from the god of death, as they felt guilty about killing their prey. Vikir acknowledged that even the warrior tribe of Balaks had a shaman. One of the barbarian girls commented on the shaman's nagging, while her male companion suggested letting him be, as the shaman needed to establish his position. The girl expressed doubts about the effectiveness of the shaman's blessings because they had often failed in the past. She indicated that they only sought his blessings on specific occasions. Vikir wondered if her skepticism meant that the shaman's position held little meaning, realizing that this place wasn't much different from others. Sometime later, Ayan stood with her face adorned in comical charcoal markings. Vikir looked at her and jokingly remarked on her appearance. Ayan wiped the markings off her face and angrily retorted, stating that she didn't get along with the shaman. In her embarrassment, she offered Vikir a collar. Vikir held the collar in his hand, questioning if it was a dog collar. Ayan proceeded to put on a collar herself and explained that they wore them to protect their necks from being bitten by their prey. Vikir contemplated the situation and decided that since he was already there, it would be better to adapt to this place. As Ayan and Vikir rode a wolf, she reminded him to hold on to her waist, concerned about his safety. Vikir assured her that he would be fine, and they set off. Ayan glanced back at Vikir, who had fallen off the wolf, and playfully chided him for not holding onto her waist, warning him about the consequences of his actions. Vikir wondered if he would be able to get up in his current state. Suddenly, Vikir noticed that someone had arrived before them. It was Ahun, the barbarian who had been secretly following them. Ayan dismounted from the wolf and called out to him. Ahun commented on Ayan's apparent freedom, accusing her of playing around with her slave. Ahun then came close to Ayan and stated that he was going to catch bigger prey this time. He declared that in the next joint hunt, he would be the captain of the hunting group. He even went as far as putting his grandfather's honor on the line. Ayan questioned his decision to stake his grandfather's honor on something he only knew about shamanism. Unexpectedly, Ahun launched a powerful kick aimed at Vikir's face, surprising Ayan. She angrily confronted him, questioning his actions. Ahun smirked and belittled Vikir, questioning how she could use an injured male as a hunting assistant. He told her to get a hold of herself and claimed that he would only be a burden to her. Suddenly, Ayan noticed something and smiled. She told Ahun to check his waistband before saying those things. Confused, Ahun looked at his waistband and exclaimed in shock. Meanwhile, Vikir spat out some blood from his mouth. With Ahun's quiver and arrow in his grasp, Vikir smiled and remarked that Ahun should hold on to his weapons as he would with his lover. Ahun was shocked by the revelation that his weapons had been taken. He glared at Vikir in anger and Ayan burst into laughter upon hearing this. Suddenly, Ahun attacked Vikir with a punch, calling him an arrogant slave bastard. However, before the punch could reach Vikir, Ayan swiftly intervened, using her bow to block the attack, and shouted at Ahun, commanding him to stop. She questioned Ahun in a cold voice, asking him whose slave he thought he was punishing on his own accord. Ahun, filled with anger, exclaimed that Vikir was a slave and had insulted a Balak warrior. Ayan responded, stating that Ahun had been acting pathetic in front of Vikir. Ahun continued to argue, questioning why she was defending Vikir so passionately, and suggesting that she might have developed feelings for the slave. Ayan, frustrated, placed her hand on her head and conceded, acknowledging that Vikir was indeed a slave and should be punished if he had done something wrong. However, she emphasized that Ahun didn't have the right to punish him because Vikir was her slave. Vikir, who was still on the ground, looked at them with a questioning expression. Suddenly, Ayan unleashed a powerful punch aimed at Vikir's face. Ahun watched the scene in shock, his mouth agape as blood sprayed onto the lush green grass. Ayan gazed at Ahun with cold eyes and asked if he was happy now. With a mixture of coldness and anger, she warned Ahun that she knew he was upset because he had failed to capture a maiden for himself before. But if he ever harmed her slave again, she would beat him up. Ahun, taken aback, reluctantly agreed. Sometime later, Ayan and Vikir continued riding the wolf, but Ayan kept looking at Vikir with apologetic gazes. She asked if it hurt, but Vikir remained silent. She then inquired if he was angry, but Vikir remained silent once again. Ayan explained that her actions were necessary to stop Ahun's petty retaliations, as he was a stubborn and petty person. Seeing that Vikir was still silent, Ayan asked why he wasn't replying. Finally, Vikir responded, saying that it hurt. In response, Ayan jumped up in the air and landed back on the wolf's back, facing Vikir. She caught his face and anxiously asked if it hurt a lot, if it was bad, and if his life was in danger. Vikir replied that it hurt to talk and that he had experienced similar injuries before. But before Vikir could finish his sentence, Ayan's lips landed on his. After some time had passed, Ayan's face blushed red, and she placed her fingers on her lips. She suddenly turned forward in a hurry and said that she knew she was right, stating that Vikir showed promise for an imperial bastard. Vikir wiped his face and pondered if barbarians usually licked each other's injuries, considering it dangerous as it could spread infection. Ayan looked back at Vikir and asked if there was something he wanted from her, promising to do anything if it was within her capabilities. Vikir asked if he could ask for anything. Hearing this, Ayan's body trembled and she assured Vikir that a Balak warrior never goes back on their word. Vikir contemplated his request while Ayan wondered why he was thinking so hard. Her face flushed red, and she suspected that Vikir might be pondering something strange. Finally, Vikir revealed that he had decided what he wanted. Hearing this, Ayan waited in anticipation, her face covered with a blush. Finally, Vikir asked Ayan to teach him how to shoot arrows. Hearing this, Ayan's face turned down with disappointment, but she agreed to his request. As they continued forward, Ayan suggested that from tomorrow onwards they engage in some special training. She inquired if this plan was acceptable, and Vikir nodded in agreement.